Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and we are now in August. So that means we are post the MLB trade deadline, and it's time for another MLB tier list where I go ahead and rank where each team I believe stands in right now into these 6 categories. We have World Series contenders, divisional winners, what the heck, get out of here, wild card teams, meh teams like that are kind of around wild card but not completely trash either. Just your bad baseball teams, and then Chicago. I think everyone knows why that is a separate tier right now. We follow baseball, so let's go ahead and get started with the LA Angels, currently sitting at 47-62, 13 games back of the last wild card spot. This is just a bad baseball team. Mike Trout got officially shut down for the rest of the year. They're just an aimless franchise right now with one of the best players of all time not being able to play due to injury. Rendon's big contract being a complete disaster. Not really developing any pitching. They're a really, really bad team right now. So right now, they're going to go down there. Next up, we got the Houston Astros, who currently sit at 56-52, currently leading the AL West division. Very close with them and Seattle right now. They're pretty much neck and neck. So Seattle's going to be up in the same spot. But really good comeback for Houston. They added Yusei Kikuchi at the deadline, but they gave up quite a bit for him, which I don't know how that's going to work for them. Offense is doing pretty darn good. Pitching has been pretty solid. So, yeah, after their slow start to the year where I had them all the way down here in the bad tier, they have caught fire up in division. So, good on you, Houston. We still all hate you. Next up is the Oakland Athletics, 45-65. Didn't sell as much as we all thought they would. They still have Brent Rooker on their team. He's been an absolute baller for them. But compared to last year where they were absolutely the worst team in baseball, I think them being bad, just a bad team, is an improvement. They're getting some young development there. But still, screw their owner for leaving Oakland. Screw them for going to Sacramento. I feel so bad for the fans and for the players themselves. I mean, they played to an empty stadium at home, and I feel so bad for the Oakland players and the Oakland fans, so I wish it gets resolved. Next up, the Toronto Blue Jays, currently 50-59, 10 games back of the last wild card spot. I have them in bad. They have been one of the most disappointing teams in baseball this year. They still kept a lot of their core players like Vlad Jr., George Springer, and stuff like that, but sold some other assets to get some prospects back. So I think they did a good job of keeping their good players, because I think this is kind of a fluke year for them. And also to get some good value for the players they did sell for. So for next year, they might be better. So good on you, Toronto. Next up, we have the Atlanta Braves. Sorry, I need to look up. 59-49, currently the top wildcard team in the National League. A game and a half back ahead of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So wildcard is going to be very, very competitive for the NL here. But the Braves, they added Jorge Soler, trying to bring back some vibes from 2021, but you got to wonder if it's going to be enough due to all the injuries they have. But they have been playing some pretty solid baseball. They just took 2 out of the 3 from the Milwaukee Brewers, and they're Atlanta. They're always going to be there at the end, I think, so up there in wild card. Next up, we got the Milwaukee Brewers, 61-47, leading the NL Central by 5.5 games. They keep on moving on. They did not add a lot at the trade deadline, which I thought was surprising. Really only added Aaron Savali, Frankie Montas, and Nick Mears for their bullpen. But they get pitching. But they're just really kind of just taking this year as like everything is just free after this because of how well they're performing, especially to make the playoffs, which I think they will. They got a really good team right now. But this point, I didn't see them try to get to the upper echelon, but I think it is probably smarter to let their prospects develop some more. So, Milwaukee up in division. St. Louis, currently 2 games back of the last wild card spot. I mentioned earlier, 5.5 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers. They added a lot at the deadline, so watch out for St. Louis. They're going to try to make a push for the playoffs and make a push for the Brewers. Do I think they will? I don't know, because there's a lot of talented teams in the NL right now fighting for the wild card spots. So right now, they're on the outside looking in, but they're close enough to be in that tier. Chicago Cubs, 53-58. 5 games below 500. They're kind of just meh. They had a kind of a weird trade line, getting Isaac Paredes in exchange for trading Chris Morel for him. So just very interesting deadline for the Cubs, but they're meh. They're not really that great of a team right now. They're currently 6 games back of the NL wild card. They're like 9 games back of the Brewers, or 11 games back of the Brewers, something like that. But the Cubs, not that great of a baseball team either. Next up, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have been playing very good baseball of late. 7-3 in the last 10 games. Currently sitting at 58-51. Half game up on the New York Mets for the last NL wildcard spot. And kind of figured they would bounce back a little bit after kind of being mediocre for the majority of the season. I mean, they're defending NL pennant winners for a reason. They're a talented team and been playing some pretty good baseball, so good job, Arizona. Next up, we got the LA Dodgers, 63-46. They're going to World Series contenders. They're one of my 2 contenders from the National League. They got Jack Flaherty for basically nothing, and I am upset about that. They have good pitching. Offense has been really good. I mean, Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani have been really solid. And that's with them losing Max Muncy and Mookie Betts for a good portion of the year, and they just keep humming. They just keep humming, and they just frustrate the heck out of me as a small market fan that they just keep adding and adding and adding and spending and spending and spending. It's just frustrating, to say the least. Next up, we have the San Francisco Giants, 54-56. They are going here into the mid tier. They're currently 4.5 games back of the last NL wildcard spot. They sold off a couple of pieces. They're not really looking to contend this year. They got some decent prospects for Jorge Soler and Alex Wood. So, meh for the Giants so far. Not really much to say about them. Next up, we have the team with the best record in baseball, the Cleveland Guardians. Currently, World Series contenders. They added Lane Thomas to their roster. I think is going to be a very good fit for them. They didn't really add much at the deadline. They got great pitching, a great bullpen, and pretty solid offense. I know a lot of people think, oh, Cleveland's just going to fold in the playoffs, but I really do think this year they have a really solid shot at competing. Do I think they're going to be the World Series representative for the AL? I do not, because the AL is extremely tight right now. But they're going to be a very, very tough opponent in the playoffs. So Cleveland, I do believe, is in the World Series contender tier. And Seattle, I'm putting them in division because of how just how close they are to the they're tied with the Astros for the AL West right now. They added in a couple of bats there that I think would be they got Randy Arozarena. I think that's going to be very good news for their offense. Their pitching has been fantastic. The offense is just back to decent. Not even good. Decent with that pitching. They can be dangerous. So watch out for Seattle. I think them and Houston are going to go down to the wire in terms of playoff positioning. Next up, we have the Florida Marlins, 40-69. They are a bad team, but they're no longer the worst in the National League. That title belongs to Colorado. But yeah, they sold off a lot of pieces at the deadline, a lot of relief arms, got some good prospects back for them. So overall, I think it was a very smart deadline for Miami to sell high on a couple of their really key guys and get some prospects for each year because he's just basically punting this year. So Miami's down there. Next, we got the New York Mets, currently sitting at 57-51, half game back of the Diamondbacks for the last NL wild card. And they've definitely improved as a team, as I stated in my last Power Rankings around the All-Star game. They added in some hitters. They got Jesse Winker. They got a couple other guys. They're going to make a push for the playoffs this year because, I mean, why wouldn't they? They are the Mets. And they have definitely been one of the most improved teams from the beginning of the year. So good job on them. Next up, Washington, 49-60. They are a bad team, but a bad team with promise. They did some smart things. They flipped their kind of like low-risk, high-reward signings from the offseason to contending teams, get some prospects back. Got to let your young guys develop. They're basically like still taking a year away from kind of competing for the wild card, but they're taking the good steps right now. So Washington is still in bad. American League, AL East leading Baltimore Orioles currently at 65-45, tied with the Yankees. I'm just going to put the Yankees up here too, talking to them at the same time. Both of these two teams are tied at top of the AL East. Both of these teams added at the deadline. Both of these teams are going to fight down the wire for the AL East crown. And I think one of these two teams will represent the American League in the World Series. I personally want to be Baltimore because I hate the Yankees to death. But yeah, no, these two teams have been absolutely insane this year. The offenses have been incredible. Orioles, I think, have better pitching, but yeah, these two teams are going to be down for the wire for the World Series. Next up, we got the San Diego Padres. Currently sitting here as the second wild card team in the National League. Half game ahead of the Padres. Half game ahead of the Diamondbacks for the last spot. And so they're doing some pretty good work there. Added some members at the deadline. And yeah, Padres are doing pretty good. Next up here, we have the Philadelphia Phillies, currently sitting at the top of the National League. Let me pull up my thing again. And their World Series center. They have struggled a bit out of the gate since the All-Star game, but they're still currently the best team in the National League at 65 wins, playing really good baseball. If I were to predict the World Series now, it would be Orioles-Phillies. I think that would be a very, very entertaining series as well. So, next up, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates, currently sitting 2 games above 500, 2.5 games back of the final wild card spot. They actually bought at the deadline, added a couple of bats to their lineup. Pittsburgh's been playing really good. Paul Skenes has been fantastic for them. And so, a bit surprising that they're currently third in the Central right now, fighting for a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to make it this year, but this is a really, really good building year for them here. So, go to you, Pittsburgh. Next up, we have the Texas Rangers. 52 and 57. I currently put them in meh. The defending World Series champions, I do not think are going to make the playoffs this year. They dealt with some injuries. They dealt with underperformance as well. But, hey, they got that ring. This year really doesn't matter too much for them. If they struggle next year, that's when you're really going to have to start questioning them. Then we have the Tampa Bay Rays. 55 and 53. I mean, they're currently putting them kind of here. They're 4.5 games back at the final wild card spot. I don't think they're going to make it, as the teams that are ahead of them are just so much better than them. They're just kind of meh, around 500. They did kind of sell at the deadline, but they got rid of Rosarena, a couple other players, get some prospects back in, so I don't think they really want to contend either, but right now, currently in meh. Next, we got the Boston Red Sox, currently 57 and 52 games back of the final wild card spot in the American League, and they added at the deadline, and it's going to be a battle for that last wild card spot, to say the least. So they're right in there, around with Kansas City, the loser New York, Baltimore, Minnesota, and the loser of Houston and Seattle. So there's 5 teams for 3 spots. Some people are not going to be happy. But Boston's right up in there. They're doing very, very good. Next up, we got Cincinnati Reds, currently sitting at 52 and 56, 5.5 games back at the last wild card spot. Kind of a disappointing year for the Reds. I mean, they expected to take this massive step forward. They really haven't done that. And they kind of soft sold a little bit at the deadline. Got rid of some of their players on expiring contracts. Got some prospects back, not a lot. So, not really much there out with the Reds. Colorado, 40 and 70. Worst team in the National League. But even they are better than the worst team in baseball. Really disappointing trade deadline. They could have sold off a lot of players and gotten a good amount of prospects up, but they kind of held pat, which is really, really surprising, but also not surprising because they are Colorado, so not really too much there. So, yeah. Next up, we got the Kansas City Royals, 61 and 49. Currently, the best wildcard team in the American League, not named Baltimore or New York because they're fighting out for the division. They have been pretty shocking to me as a really good team. Bobby Witt Jr. has been so hot this past few months. Currently putting his name in MVP because conversations with Soto, Judge, and Henderson. So Bobby Witt playing really good, and Kansas City is overall playing really good as well. Detroit currently 52 and 58. They kind of are a meh team here. Underperforming. They did get some pieces back from Jack Flaherty and a couple other players they sold. Did not trade Terry Skubal because they think he's going to be ace, and good for them on doing that. But not really a lot there for the Tigers to really do. So Kind of disappointing deadline for them. Next up, we got the Minnesota Twins, currently sitting at 59-48. Last team in the wild card spot position for now in the American League. But like I said, with them, Kansas City, Boston, and then Seattle in there as well, it's going to be a absolute bloodbath on who is going to get those last few spots. It is going to be a fun stretch right here next 2 months for the wild card position. So there's that. And then finally, the team that is currently on a 17-game losing streak, not even at 30 wins, the Chicago White Sox. How are they this bad is what I'm asking. And honestly, they deserve to be in a tier below, 2 tiers below bad, with no one team in between them, because they're just 17-game losing streak. How a negative 229 run differential. It's just insane how bad they are. So that's my tier list. Right now in World Series contenders, we have Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York Yankees, Cleveland, and LA Dodgers. Division, we have the Brewers, Astros, and Mariners. Wildcard teams, we have the Royals, Braves, Twins, Padres, Diamondbacks, Mets, Red Sox, Cardinals, and Pirates. Meh, we have the Rays, Giants, Rangers, Reds, Cubs, and Tigers. Bad, we have the Blue Jays, Nationals, Angels, A's, Marlins, and Rockies. And in a tier all by themselves of suckitude, we have the White Sox. I don't know when they're going to win another game, so yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back here very soon with another video.